Right, we have a call to order of the, our public hearing on the millage rate. Need a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, I guess we can turn it over now to Tom Gray for a millage rate review. That'll be followed by public comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hollowell. This is our millage rate review. This PowerPoint is really just kind of summing up the documents that are out there on Assembly as well and that have been in the newspaper, so this is just kind of an easier version to see. This is the millage rate schedule. Today we have two hearings at 12 and at 6, and then on the 21st we have a hearing at 6 p.m., and then after the hearing we'll have the adoption on the 21st. And then we will forward the information to the county commission to include with their approval of their millage rate. Just to review kind of the gross digest changes, reassessment of real property increased $320 million. That's about 5.7%. Growth in real and personal property increased $131 million, and that was about 2.3%. So combined, that's about 7.9% is really how it works out. Motor vehicle is decreasing 16.8%, and that has to do with still changing over to the title ad valorem tax system. So those cars are falling off that part of the digest. The overall gross digest increased $468 million, 7.6%, and if you take out the motor vehicle, it's about 7.9% increase in the digest. Continuing on the digest review, exemptions increased $115.1 million. That's 10% over the previous year. And right now, exemptions equal about 18.9 of the gross digest. We'll show a graph that in a little bit that shows kind of that trend. So the net digest increased about 6.9%, almost 7%. And if you take out the motor vehicle, because it's kind of treated a little bit differently with the calculation, that's about 7.4%. The rollback rate was calculated at 18.35 mils. There's a document on Assembly on the board agenda that shows how the calculation was done. The proposed millage rate is 19.25 for maintenance and operations. That's a decrease over the previous year of a quarter of a mil. We did do the required advertisements for the 5-year millage, 5-year digest, which was this document you see up here. That's also on our website for anyone to review, that has the 2019 digest in the 5 previous years. We show our millage rate projected at 19.25 and what tax would come in for that. We also include our bond below that, and we'll talk a little bit more about the bond. We're doing the rollback rate on the bond, 1.271%. So if anyone needs to look at that information, it is on the website as well. This is just kind of a graphical representation of what the digest is doing over the last 5 years. You can see how the trend is kind of steady, but one thing to notice here is the difference here between the net and the gross digest is starting to widen a little bit, and that has to do with the exemptions. But it is on a positive upward trend overall. This shows us the exemptions over the last almost 20 years. And for a long time, we were around 11%, but then starting around 2007 and 8, we started to see an increase where the exemptions as a percentage of the gross digest have increased. Going to our budget revenue calculation, the 2020 budget totals $229.5 million. About half of that is local revenue, and specifically $104.4 million is from property tax revenues. Based on the digest and our millage rate, we would come in just slightly under our budgeted revenues of about $103.2 million. So we do have to make some adjustments during a year for that. The motor vehicle ad valorem tax budget is $1.2 million, and we feel like we'll be pretty close on that based on the current amount of vehicles out there. The debt service millage rate, it says remains, but it's actually reducing to 1.271 mils. and that is what would be the rollback rate for the debt service. Budgeted revenues of $6.4 million and projected revenue of $6.86. So that additional revenue would stay in debt service and pay the next year's as well. Proposed millage rates for the M&O is 19.25, and for the school bond is 1.271. This is just kind of give you an overview of what the rollback rate means on the millage and how we calculate a tax increase. So the rollback millage rate represents the millage rate at which, if you took last year's digest, what would the same amount of tax be? What would that millage rate have to be in total? So that's really what it's trying to calculate. And if you do not go back to the rollback rate, we have to do the 3 public hearings and then calculate what a tax increase would be for the average property value for homestead and non-homestead in the county. So the rollback rate for maintenance operations would have been 18.35 mils, and our proposed is 19.25. It's 0.9 mil difference, and so that's considered a 4.9% tax increase. On a average valued home for homestead of $300,000, that would be $106.20. And for a non-homestead property of average value $275,000, that's $99. And 0.9 mil equates to about $4.83 million in revenue. This just shows kind of what we've done on the millage rate over the last several years. We had been capped out back in prior to I think it was either 2009 or 2008, we capped out at 20 mils, which is the highest for the school system can have by state law. You can see that since 2016, we've been bringing that down a little bit. Also on the bond, you can see the trend on the bond is going down as well. Okay. So if there's any questions or comments I can respond to for the board. Probably is about the 3rd time you've seen the information, so.
Any questions? Okay. All right. Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Okay, we'll now move to the public comment portion. And just as kind of a reminder, the board will not permit anyone to become personally abusive of an individual student, board member, or board employees. The board will take comments and questions under advisement, and responses, if needed, will be provided by the superintendent. If you could just come to the podium and state your name and address.
Hello, my name is Danny Dolan. My address is 110 Taylor Ridge Court, Tyrone. I am the vice chairman of the Libertarian Party of Fayette County, and I have 2 children at Crab Abilene Elementary School. Mr. Superintendent, you'd written to the citizen that conventional wisdom would note that in order to have a top-quality school system, a community would need to invest in its local schools. Equally conventional wisdom would also note that wasteful spending should not be called investment. I had a conversation not long ago with a science teacher who said she can't get beakers and specimens that she would like to use, but we will be getting drug-sniffing dogs in our schools, not from local law enforcement, but from a contractor in Texas. We have the Blackboard system implemented for all students in classrooms from kindergarten through high school. From my experience, at least at elementary school, it's barely used. It gets in the way. When it comes to parent-teacher communications, nothing beats a piece of paper in the child's folder or an email. We have Dreambox, a math learning system which has taught my daughter at least more about clever gameplay than rapid arithmetic. In 2009, this school system built a beautiful new elementary school for $10 million. 4 years later, the same school, serving maybe 20 students, was sold for roughly half that price, and now you want to build again. As Ronald Reagan said, the problem is not that people are not taxed enough. Surely you heard this conventional wisdom: money does not grow on trees. We are not made of money. I urge you to reduce the millage rate, do not raise taxes on us, and spend more wisely instead of just spending more. Thank you.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Tony Parrott. I live at 110 Ellsworth Point. hadn't been as warm today, I could have walked up here.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a whole lot of funds with this tax increase, and I know you're gonna do the tax increase, and I don't mind, it's something you're gonna do. But I do wish that you consider one thing, and that is increase the pay that the board makes, because I think it would make a world of difference on competition for board members. Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, well, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned. We'll be back here at 6.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks.